When we hear that an economy is growing, it sounds like good news. But what if that growth doesn't make people better off at all? What if the headline number hides the reality? Gross domestic product, GDP, is the most commonly used measure of economic performance. When GDP rises, politicians celebrate. When it falls, they warn of crisis. But GDP measures the total size of an economy, not how that wealth is distributed, and not how it affects individuals. Think of your own financial situation. Well, GDP has grown over the last 20 years. How much have you felt that? Or how much was it that we've imported people who we then pay benefits to, but because they spend those benefits, they increase GDP? That's not real, that's artificial. And governments chase the next election cycle. So if they show a GDP increase, they've grown the economy. Why does it often feel like they haven't? Because if a country's GDP grows by 5%, but its population grows by 5%, the average person is no better off. Couple that with inflation and you're worse off. Just because the economy's bigger doesn't mean individuals are richer, and yet the headlines can still read growth. Well, population's been increasing steadily. Net migration's reached historically high levels, and demand on housing, healthcare and infrastructure is intensified. But every time we build a new block of flats to put the increased population in, it's not growing the economy unless they're making something new that wouldn't have happened. When you adjust your population, the pictures change. GDP per capita has been stagnant for much of the past decade. In some periods it's declined, so our productivity has fallen. While the economy in total is larger, the average person is no better off. People are told the economy is growing, they don't feel any richer and they wonder why. Well, because we're using a false measure, or a measure that can be cooked and has been cooked by successive governments. In the UK, wages, real wage growth has been weak compared to previous decades. Housing, house prices and rents have risen faster than incomes in most areas. Public services, the NHS transport and local services face increasing demand. The tax burden, the overall tax take is rising and we all feel it in our wage. These pressures are consistent with an economy where total output is growing, but output per person just isn't keeping pace. In other words, more economic activity is being spread across more people without any corresponding increase in productivity. The UK GDP has recovered and growth is nominal since 2020, but GDP per capita has lagged behind, reflecting population growth and weak productivity. When politicians talk about productivity, they were mocked for putting down the British people. They weren't putting down the British people, they were telling you the truth. Just because the headline says the economy's growing doesn't mean living standards aren't flat. And this divergence matters politically and economically because policy discussions based on total GDP overlook the underlying experience of the man in the street. GDP shapes incentives in the UK policy environment. It's easier to increase total GDP than GDP per capita, but total GDP doesn't mean anything to you personally because it doesn't improve your quality of life. It might not even maintain it. It's not necessary to improve productivity or individual prosperity, but it would be nice, wouldn't it, if we were actually better off the way our parents and grandparents were. We're the first generation to not be better off than our parents. And if we continue these approaches and we continue this obsession with GDP over GDP per capita, I can guarantee you we'll be worse off than our parents and grandparents. So what's the alternative? Shift in focus. Economic success in the UK should be judged not just on total growth, but on improvements in living standards. And I don't mean like the Greens are suggesting based on your sentiments. Do you feel more happy? Do you feel more positive? Woo, I did a good job. Secondly, greater transparency. GDP figures should be presented alongside GDP per capita, clearly and consistently. And there needs to be a renewed focus on productivity, skills and education, investment in infrastructure, encouraging innovation and efficiency, getting the government out of the way of business that actually makes money. Because ultimately the goal of an economy isn't just to grow, it's to improve the lives of the people within it. Bit like the point of a parliament, but they just want to look like they have.